Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this March 27th meeting of the K-12 Education Finance Division to order, please. Representative Erickson, traditionally you are the one who spends the most detailed time with the minutes, the most critical time, including the occasional punctuation change needed. Have you had an opportunity with this morning's, or with yesterday's minutes, I should say, the March 26th minutes?
Mr. Chair, I will move approval of the minutes from March 26.
Thank you very much. Any discussion to the Erickson motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you very much, Representative Erickson. Members, just a heads up reminder of the day. We're meeting this morning. We like each other so much, we're meeting again this evening. Wash, rinse, repeat. We're doing that again tomorrow as well. So quality time with each other. We've got several bills to move through today. Time limits, I believe, are the guidelines for time are on your agendas as well as and posted publicly. So out of respect for everyone who's here, I hope that we can adhere to those as best we can. With that, Representative Sandstede, welcome to the committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I'd like to move House File 882 for inclusion in a future division report.
We usually say possible inclusion.
Possible, okay. I'm going to be ambitious on this one. Possible inclusion.
Thank you, Representative Sandstede.
House File 882 is a bill that proposes to increase the formula allowance by 3% in fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. This provides an increase of $189 per pupil in fiscal year 20 and $195 per pupil in fiscal year 21. House File 882 also ties future formula increases to inflation starting fiscal year 2022 and later based on the CPI. The per pupil basic formula is the largest source of revenue for our school districts, accounting for approximately 56% of a school district's total operating revenue. Since 2003, the formula has not kept up with inflation, and according to MDE, the fiscal year 19 formula allowance is $617 lower than the fiscal year 03 formula allowance after adjusting for pupil unit weighting changes in inflation. Adjusting the formula to inflation provides school districts predictability and stability, which they greatly need to be able to plan programming and making staffing decisions. With that today, I have several testifiers. Starting out is Dr. Michael McKenzie.
Dr. McKenzie, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Michael McKenzie. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I've been a teacher for 30 years now, and I'm currently the president of the White Bear Lake Teachers Association. I'm here to testify in support of House File 882. As you know, not only does it increase the funding formula by 3% each year of the biennium, but it also ties the formula to inflation. Public schools are scrambling for resources. That's because we've had a 15-year history of underfunding our schools. One of the biggest problems is the state's share of funding hasn't kept up with inflation. It's 18% less than 2003 in real dollars. That means 93% of Minnesota's 330 school districts receive less per pupil aid in real dollars in 2019 than they did in 2003. Another problem is the chronic shortfall of special education funding. Minnesota school districts this year alone spent $750 million on special education costs the state and federal governments were supposed to pay for but didn't. In White Bear Lake, our yearly special education cross-subsidy is a bit more than $11 million now. So what has that meant for the schools? I can tell you what's happening in White Bear Lake. Budget reductions cause higher class sizes. They cause individual elective classes not to be offered. They cause support staff hours to be cut. They basically reduce schools to what's required instead of what's best. Imagine how the talks in this room would be different every 2 years if we tied the funding formula to inflation. Instead of starting the conversation about how we can afford cuts, we can begin by talking about how to make our schools better. We can begin by talking about investing in what our students need, Smaller class sizes, more student support like paraprofessionals, school counselors, nurses, social workers, and bringing back lost electives that inspire our students to continue on in education. Please support House File 882 so Minnesota can get closer to full funding of public schools and closer to the funding that our students deserve. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Next testifier we have is David Law, Superintendent from Anoka-Hennepin. Mr. Law, go ahead and state your name for the record and proceed. It looks
Morning,
like you have
Chair.
an entourage with
I
you.
have an entourage, but we will be brief.
problem.
I'm David Law, Superintendent of Schools for the Anoka-Hennepin School District, and as I testify in support of this bill, I hope you enjoy the morning. I'm going to talk about the great work you have been doing. And I have brought the faces of public education with me today. To my right, a young man I've known for a little while, actually since birth. Rory is 3 years old. He's in his first year in preschool at Anoka-Hennepin's Early Childhood Center. His teacher says he can identify letters and numbers, listen to instruction, and engage in activities. After each school day, Rory brings home work samples. This is either something he wrote, drew, or built. He's looking forward to his next year of preschool. To my left, the student I met at a fundraiser about a month ago, and just a sweetheart, Ariana, a fifth grade student at Sand Creek Elementary. She's a student who has grown in confidence over her 3 years since she started at Sand Creek. Her parents have seen her independent skills develop as well, which make them proud of her. Ari participates in one of our special education programs at Sand Creek Elementary and is showing personal growth in many areas because of her, partially due to the team effort between her parents and the special education team. Behind me, I have Sarah, right behind me. I met Sarah at a student visit at our STEP Technical High School a little over a month ago. Sarah is a strong and ambitious student who's a full-time student as a junior from Champlain Park at our technical program. Within the past 7 months, Sarah has managed to successfully complete both levels of college automotive programming. During this time, she's repaired her father's brake, which included an entire rear and front brake drum job, something I personally can't do and something that's very advanced for high school students. Next is Sarah. George, if you would raise your hand. I met George at a listening session too. George is a senior at Anoka-Hennepin Technical High School. And for those people in the audience, I want to tell you an amazing story about George. George has been in the country for 18 months from Liberia, Monrovia. He's the oldest of 4 children who attend our school district. He has a passion for the automotive industry. He will earn his high school diploma this spring with 29 graduate credits in automotive technology earned at Anoka Technical College. 29 in 18 months. George works at Cornerstone Auto in Elk River and plans to open his own auto business in our community. Finally, behind me is Lumumba Ismail. I met Lumumba as a senior at Morehead State University 5 years ago. He's a graduate from Anoka High School and a social studies teacher, a student favorite. Lumumba, whose family came here from South Sudan in 1996, graduated from our school system, got a 4-year degree, has a passion for working back in our school system, and is pursuing advanced degrees to move on in school leadership, although I'd hate to lose him in the classroom. I bring my entourage with me today, not to talk about doom and gloom in public education. We need every dollar we can get. But as I've been down here testifying a dozen times about the things you'd like to see happen in public school, it's happening in Anoka-Hennepin, and it's happening with your support. 3 and 3, and I know in tight budget times every nickel counts, but 3 and 3 provides these programs for these students and our future across our system. I'm passionate for our school. I'm proud of our students, and thank you for hearing this bill and entertaining it. I'm going to invite our board member, Bill Harvey, up next.
Thank you, Superintendent Law, and quite a powerful entourage that you brought with. Mr. Harvey, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair, Bill Harvey, Anoka-Hennepin School Board. Thank you all. Thank you for the work that you do every day to support E12 education and the funding. I am here very proud of David, who just spoke to you. My job is to represent the community and to hire him. His job is to administer to our taxpayers, our families, and our students within the Anoka-Hennepin School District. We're proud of the fact that we educate approximately 5% of the students in the state of Minnesota, and we have a reputation for being very frugal. Along with that, very frugal and the work that you're doing go arm in arm. Because, for instance, 3 and 3 on the formula index to inflation, as we look at our finances and updates, it just keeps our nose above water. And any less than that, we're forced to make very tough decisions as a board on how to reallocate funds with that in mind. And I just wanted to put a face on that also after David did such a good job of putting a face on all the positive aspects of what we do every day. The challenge is, tonight I have a school board meeting, and a huge part of our agenda is to terminate probationary teachers. Because we don't have a consistent funding expectation. We have an expectation, but we can't count on the political nature of what you do to give us assurances that 3 and 3 and support for the special education cross subsidy is going to be sufficient to administer the programs that we try so hard to work toward. In the fall of 2017, our district reached out to our taxpayers because our buildings were averaging 52 years of age. We had at one time almost 100 portable classrooms, and we wanted to try to do the right things, secure our perimeters, update our buildings, and we asked for a levy from our taxpayers to support that. They supported us. At the meeting tonight, I have to terminate a lot of great educators. I know there are great educators sitting at this table. Thank you for serving. But we have to let go people that we work so hard to get. Teachers, young teachers with great talent, teachers of color. And it's tearing my heart out to have to make that decision tonight because of the budget ramifications that we're looking at. Thank you again for your work to make 3 and 3 something permanent and index to inflation something permanent and support for the education, special education cross subsidy. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, and thank you for your work on school board as well. We have Brandon Luneck, Superintendent for Moorhead, next. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Brandon Luneck, Superintendent of Moorhead, and I'll just talk about the impact that 3 and 3 would have on our district. I believe you heard from the people before me, and I'll go into how it would impact Moorhead. One of the things that we're trying to focus on in Moorhead is increasing our counselors and social workers staffing. Currently, our staffing model is way behind what the national organizations recommend. And so for us, we would really take that 3 and 3 seriously and use that to incorporate more staffing into our student support services. And the other thing that it would go to address is the ever-growing special ed cross subsidy, which I think the other folks in front of me have mentioned as well. Just from a planning standpoint, I just want to bring to your attention how that would change our planning. Currently, right now, we go through our budgeting process, which starts in November of the current school year with our enrollment projections. We forward that into what we plug into our enrollment model, and we determine what our new revenue might be based on those projections. And we have to continually put in a 0 until we know, like in this year, because we don't know what we're getting in terms of legislative increases. We have to project 0 until we actually get that number, which affects us greatly. And so the importance for us is very similar to what those other districts have shared, and any commitment that you can make to that 3 and 3 and ongoing and linking that to inflation would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next up, I have Jim Bartholomew. Mr. Bartholomew, please state your name for the record, the organization you're with, and proceed.
Hello, Madam Chair, members. My name is Jim Bartholomew with the Minnesota Business Partnership. And to start, I'd like to thank Representative Sandstede for taking your time to talk about the bill with us. I'd like to briefly testify on one specific aspect of House File 882. It's contained in lines 1.13 through lines 1.17, and this would automatically increase the formula allowance by the rate of inflation. Our concern with this provision is that by providing automatic inflationary increases, your ability to manage future state budget commitments will be significantly limited. For example, what happens when the state next suffers through another recession and revenues come in significantly lower than expected? If the formula is automatically increased, we're concerned you'll lose flexibility to balance the needs of other state spending priorities. As a result, we'd ask that you not adopt the automatic inflationary increase, which would unnecessarily limit options available to future legislatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. And with that, I think we'll see, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to testify on this bill? Seeing none, Representative Sandstede, some comments, and then we'll go to member questions.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that I realize that this is a very ambitious bill, but I'm not ashamed to bring it forward because being in the classroom, even now, I know how important this is to all of our school districts. First of all, the formula increase is what we have heard across the board, our number one tool for school districts in being able to have flexibility to meet the unique needs of individual school districts. It's got to be on the funding formula. I understand Mr. Bartholomew's concern over tying to inflation, but I think it's actually the right thing to do in terms of what happens in the event of a downturn. Our schools remain intact, our schools remain strong, and that's what we need across our state in public education. It is bold and it is ambitious, but I think we need to do it now. This is a big ship that we are trying to turn, and I think if you invest now, invest early, and invest wise, it will pay off in dividends. I also really would like to resonate the comments by Bill Harvey, the school board member. Stable funding helps with predictability and planning and staffing. It's not just hard on our school districts. When they have to make cuts, they have to place, we're coming up to the spring where we have ULAs. It's a terrible time for our districts, and it's a really terrible time for our teachers that we already know we have a shortage of. So the practice of having to put them on a ULA or let new talented teachers go, probationary teachers go, because the funding is not there, is just practicing, it's repeating a practice that we know doesn't serve our students or our districts well. They have to, but we need to do something different. And I truly, truly believe that adequate funding, tying it to inflation, isn't the perfect fix, but it is definitely a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Representative Sandstede. Member questions, I have Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like Dr. McKenzie and Mr. Harvey to come back up.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Dr. McKenzie flew?
Yeah.
Okay, I can ask Mr. Harvey here. Mr. Harvey, you said in your testimony that you're looking at pink slipping, how many teachers?
I can't recall off the top of my head, but how many is too many? I think one is too many. I'm not trying to be snarky. I'm just saying that these are people that we've strived so hard to get. And I heard from a couple of our high school principals this week.
Well over 100.
Well over 100. Thank you,
Okay.
David.
Thank you.
Friend.
And maybe, Mr. Harvey, I hope you're the right one to ask. What's your cross subsidy in Anoka Hennepin right now?
Mr. Harvey?
I'm going to have David give me accurate figures here also. I know that our
Superintendent Lau,
numbers.
you might as well pull up a chair.
Dollar.
And then state your name for the record, please, and then proceed.
Thank you for asking these questions, by the way.
Chair Joachim, David Law, Superintendent of Hennepin, and we have pushed up towards $35 billion this year.
What was it? I'm sorry.
$35 million.
Representative
35
Hewitt?
million. 35 million. Is that our teacher that just came back to the desk?
No.
Okay. I just want to point these two areas out to our members to make sure that they see that I'm one of these districts that is 29 million cross subsidy. We are laying off 20 teachers, and these are not new teachers. We are laying off over 7 nurses and a number of paras. This may fix the problem. We don't know. It's a late problem, and I'm concerned. And Representative Sandstede, I really respect you bringing this in, because that's why I think many of us suburban people were sent to the legislator to deal with this issue and this issue alone. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Representative Edelson, sorry, and then Jurgens, Kunish, Bodine, and Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Sandstede, for bringing this bill. I appreciate your comments. And to that, I hope we can get as close to a 3 and 3 as we can. I truly do. But I wanted to thank Superintendent Law for bringing the students in from the young to the graduating student. I think that oftentimes we debate policy here. We think about things in numbers and we don't think about them in students. So I really appreciated seeing the students, and I want to thank the students for being here too.
Thank you. I hope there's a day, Brantner. They're awesome. They're great to work with.
Thank you, Mr. Law.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Harvey?
If I could add a comment to the previous question, too. In addition to terminating probationary teachers, and David said over 100, we're also looking at budget scenarios based on all the potential outcomes. And for us in particular, and I spoke to the fact that we do have a reputation for being efficient and being frugal, but anything less than 3 and 3 and significant support on special education cross-subsidy, we're looking at significant cuts of existing teachers and existing programs. Even at 3 and 2 with significant support from the governor, I provided that to the tax chair a while ago, basically letting him know the support is critical for us, and especially also, as I alluded to before, reaching out to our local taxpayers, and they supported us in our bond and our levy to do this. We're quite literally going to have to give that back. And that's, as a board member, very disappointing to tell the community, thank you for voting yes, but because of not receiving what we consider adequate funding at the state level, we're now going to give some of those progress pieces back where we hired additional teachers for programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Representative Hewitt, you had a quick follow-up?
I did have a quick follow-up, Madam Chair. Thank you for yes, we're in a process of a levy too, and I just wanted one last simple question of how big is your class sizes in the high school right now?
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. We have some of the highest class sizes at the secondary level in the metro. And we were really hopeful to buy that down even a little bit through the levy that was passed through our taxpayers. But if we're at 3 and 2 or less, we're going to lose ground on that.
Okay,
Representative Hewitt?
last statement would be that I know Rosemount Apple Valley, we're at 40 to 45 per honors class in 9th grade. In civics, I'm going to say civics. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yesterday I had some teachers from my district in to visit with me, and not all of them were special education teachers, but every single one of them talked about how the lack of special education funding impacted their ability to teach all of the kids. As we've talked about in here 100 times, how because of that cross-subsidy, school districts like yours, like mine, like all of ours, are using their general fund dollars to help fund special education. And so funding, nobody is disputing the importance of funding. I do have some questions, Representative Sandstede, on the calculations here, because on line, we're doing more than just the rate of inflation. Line 1.15 and 1.16 says 1 plus percentage change in the consumer price index. So if the inflationary rate is 3%, the increase would be 4%. If the increase is 2%, or inflation is 2%, the increase would be 3%. Can you explain how you arrived at that number, where this isn't just an inflationary increase, it's more than an inflationary increase? And could you just help us with that, please?
We're going to phone a friend.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to phone a friend with
Mr.
Mr. Strom.
Madam Chair, Representative Jurgens, The 1 is actually added to the percentage. So the percentage doesn't go up by 1%. It's 1 plus the percentage, which in this case would be 3. So you'd be taking 1.03 times the formula. So it's the 3% inflation rate. But writing 1 times that is a simpler way than saying use that amount, add 3% to it. So it does the same thing, but it keeps that rate at the rate of inflation. And the 1 is, literally, if it were a 3% rate, the number would be 1.03 times the current formula.
So not adding a percentage.
Not adding a percentage point, yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Strong.
Thank you for the question. Representative Kunesh-Podein.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for bringing this forward. As you all know, I myself am an active teacher. We started out the school year with a $10.6 million deficit, and we felt that impact the very first day we walked in for our teacher preparation. For the months that I was there, it was a very difficult couple of months, just trying to manage the number of students that we had, because as Representative Hewitt alludes, our class sizes are growing, our resources are diminishing, and we're looking for the best educational outcome that we can for our students. And as we're talking about providing the proper nutrition for our students, when we're talking about being able to meet the mental health needs of our students as well as the staff, all of those things take money. And I know Representative Sandstede and I can attest to the diminishing quality of education in a broad sense when it comes to thinking of the liberal arts. I'm a library media specialist. Representative is a music teacher, and we see those really important, vital specialists and support staff going by the way in exchange for that elusive, incredible testing score that we're all going after. And we're not looking at the whole student. And we're not looking at the well-being of the staff. And I really appreciate this bill and the move towards trying to fund our schools, or fully funding our schools, and making sure that not only are our special ed kids getting the things that they need, but that all of our students are, so that they really are a well-rounded 21st century educated individual. And of course, as we always say, those kids are our future. And in order to get what we want in our future, we need to be investing in them at this point right now. And so I want to thank you again for bringing this forward. And I really hope we take that bold step and get back to really fully funding our educational system in the way that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Erickson is our last one on the list, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Sandstede, for bringing forth this proposal. I'm wondering, have you considered how you're going to ensure that there's parity between the metro and the non-metro schools, considering we have compensatory aid and so much of what drives up more funding for metro is based on the free or reduced lunches?
Representative Sandstede.
Madam Chair and members, that is a great question, and I appreciate it very much. This is what I see as being the first step in fixing funding for education. I think this is the first step that we need to do that brings the necessary changes that all of our school districts are looking for. It is not the only step. And I think what comes next is going to be dealt with through either a task force or a work group or something that's looking at formula the funding across the board. I think there are many changes, as I have testified to before, that need to be made, but I think this is the one that we need probably most desperately, and it allows the flexibility across the state from district to district to address the unique needs of every single school district. And it puts us on a path, it puts us on a trajectory to offset instability in the event of a downturn in our economy. So more to come.
Madam Chair, follow-up.
Representative Erickson.
Mr. Harvey, please. As a school board member, Mr. Harvey, you're going to have to do some, if this becomes law, if this becomes law, you're going to have to do some future projections. So what does a board do, just very, very briefly, to anticipate this kind of funding increase and then based on inflation? You know, what will you do? Because you're still going to have all those costs and they're going to rise and you're going to be negotiating higher salaries for everybody. So what will you do as a board?
Mr. Harvey?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. So we do this currently, and we run a number of different scenarios, which was the document I held up at all the different levels. But once again, I so appreciate this legislation being brought forth because it does not catch us up from way back to 2003, probably. I'm trying to remember the numbers there, but we're to a point where we experience devastating cuts every time we fall short of a 3 and 3. If 3 and 3 were indexed to inflation and made permanent, it would give us the stability to make choices based on programming. It doesn't change the fact that our negotiations with our bargaining units will still have to be realistic, but we've had a building process over the last couple of years where the relationship with our bargaining units and our school board and our administration has become much more healthy and transparent. And the realities of those collaborative discussions and negotiations, I'll even say to the point where I think it was 2 years ago, I was knocking on the doors of some of your offices, walking arm in arm with our representative from Anoka Hennepin Education, Minnesota. So we were walking in together saying 3 and 3 is what we're both asking for, what we both need as organizations. And I've represented Minnesota School Boards Association and the Association of Metro School Districts and Schools for Equity in Education and served in various roles in all those organizations. And we are all singing the same song. So thank you. The question is great. But it wouldn't change how we do things. It would just give us some stability to not have to ride this roller coaster, and it wouldn't be so painful to our community when we've worked so hard to secure young, new talent and teachers of color and special education teachers. And tonight, when I have to terminate over 100 of those positions, it makes it tough to sleep. It really is not my ideal situation. We love to celebrate all the great things we're doing in Anoka Hennepin and some of your other educators. Many of you are, I know, thank you. But we're very proud of our enrichment programs. In Anoka Hennepin, our music program is some of the best in the state. My children have benefited from that personally. Our library media program and everything that we do, we're very proud of. We've held tight at a time where our student population has become much more diverse. Our achievement gap has not increased. It's shrunk slightly. And we strive so hard to see progress with all that. So from a board member, I'm proud of our community. I'm proud of our teachers, our schools, our parents, our students. But it really makes it challenging when we have an inconsistent funding mechanism. And so once again, as the representative stated so well, 3 and 3 and support for special education and index to inflation. Inflation's going to go up and down. It'll follow that. That is the starting point. That is not where I see this ending, but it's certainly what's needed. Thank you. I didn't mean to ramble, but I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
And I just want to,
your final word, and then we're going to move on.
I just want to make one quick comment on that as a follow-up here. When our state can enable our school districts in the way that they need to not have this roller coaster effect, I think that is going to be pivotal and in incenting or inviting people back into the profession. There are many young, talented people who are concerned about going into education for the fear of being cut. They don't want to invest and have school loans and debt only to have to ride this continual roller coaster. Closing word?
Yes, please.
You're welcome. Thank you. One person told me once upon a time, what you value, you budget for. What you value, you budget for. And I think right now, I know that this committee values education greatly. I know that. And so I'm going to ask you all to be bold and not be afraid to take this very bold step. and I would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Representative Sandstede. Representative Sandstede renews her motion to lay over House File 882 for possible inclusion in the future division report. Next up, we have Representative Sandell with the House File 1190, and I believe the motion will be the same. So Representative Sandell, would you like to move House File 1190 for possible inclusion in a Education Division report?
Madam Chair, I would. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Representative Sandell moves House File 1190 for possible inclusion in a future division report. Do we have the bill before us? Would you like to proceed, please?
Well, Madam Chair, thanks very much for the opportunity to come before this committee and talk about House File 1190. It is a really a win, 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 and win proposition. Schools, students, colleges, universities, moms and dads, and certainly students have benefited from the concurrent enrollment program over the years. House File 1190 provides support to maintain and strengthen the concurrent enrollment program throughout the state. The program gives students the opportunity to enroll in college classes taught by their high school faculty and receive college credits at no additional cost to the students. The program is enormously popular. It serves to strengthen the school's curriculum, encourage students to try out being a college student, and reduces the financial burden of college tuition. It's a good deal all around. Dr. Joe Nathan, a friend and colleague of mine for a long while, is here with me today. Joe and former Governor Rudy Perpich are perhaps the two individuals who are most responsible for creating ways to broaden choices for high school students in Minnesota and possibly around the country. Joe also has with him two terrific students, Brooke Flo and Kalik Rogers, who I've met and who are terrific representatives of people who have benefited from the concurrent enrollment program. In addition, Mr. Roger Erickson of the Elementary and Secondary Principals Association will describe some of the financial history of our request. We'll be brief, but I don't want to overlook the real importance of this great program for all of our districts.
Thank
Joe,
you,
do you want to start?
Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my apology for my voice today. I have been in bed for the last 4 days, but I thought this was really critical, and so I wanted to be here to show my support for your work and for Representative Sandell's work. I will be brief. I think that many of you have this document in your packet. It's a document some of you have seen before. It shows the percentage of young people who participate in at least one PSEO, post-secondary enrollment options, or concurrent enrollment class, and shows a dramatic difference between the overall graduation rate in high school between those students and students who did not participate. On the back side, so for example, African American, it's 58% who did not participate overall versus 88% who did in at least one class. American Indian, 49 versus 88, and so on and so forth. And some people have said, well, that's because the kids who participate in college in the schools or PSEO are the most motivated kids, so naturally they're going to be ones to graduate. If you turn to the back side of this page, or it might be a separate page in your packet, it does appear to be back to back, great. You'll see two quotes that I want to highlight from massive amount of research. The first is a study that was done here at the University of Minnesota. It's about 3/4 of the way down. Preliminary results of a study found that students from low economic households who took advanced courses did just as well as first term and first year GPAs, that's grade point average, as more affluent students who did not take these. And then, and this is really encouraging, because it's not just about entering, it's about graduating. CIS and PSEO students tend to graduate at faster rates than students from similar backgrounds. These are programs that have a huge impact overall in the state. They have a huge positive impact on low-income kids and kids of color, and they help all kinds of kids. To further illustrate this, we have two wonderful examples, Minnesota Public High School graduates who are going to tell you a little bit about their experience.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Hey, Madam Chair. My name is Kalik Rogers. I'm a current student of Metro State. I graduated from Gordon Parks High School and graduated also from St. Paul College. I've done a couple different classes when it comes to CIS, one of them being a writing studio, also a public speaking course as well, both of which I got all A's in through the U of M. And to state just the importance of it. I'm sure you already know, but this pretty much gave me insight, or more or less foresight, of what I can do in the future. I already knew that education was a powerful tool to get to where I wanted to go, but it was more of how was I going to get there. Being a first-generation college student was it wasn't discouraging, but it was okay. I haven't even held tens of thousands of dollars. So how am I going to owe somebody that? I didn't want to owe someone $5, so let alone thousands. So for me, it was, how is this going to be possible? And so I challenged my school, Gordon Parks. I wanted to give it a try and try CIS classes. I did AccuPlacer, leveled in college, algebra, writing, and science. So for me, it was a no-brainer to give it a try. So to my surprise, I did very well, and that's where I met Joe. He wanted to interview me. He was like, yeah, how was your experience? And I gave him a pretty good interview from what he told me. And he was like, what do you think about going around and, telling other individuals who look like you as well, that may be afraid of the opportunity, and tell them about your experience? And so I did, and that caused me to go around the tour of the Twin Cities, speaking at places such as this, school board meetings, and just going to schools and talking about my experience, and showing them that it is possible. Whether an individual can see it, or if they put their fears on you, and may think that that might not be an opportunity for you based off of their own experience or others, their experience as well. So for me, it was just very important to do that. And I just got back. So I got my own life skills. I created a life skills consulting company. And the purpose of that is to increase the level of expectations in our community. There's like a big, huge spirit of mediocrity. And I noticed that in high school. And for my peers and those who weren't able to, at that time, and I know they will in the future, hopefully, to reach their full potentials based off of just the expectation being so low of them. So they began to accept it. And for me, that was something I couldn't accept. And I had powerful mentors such as Joe and countless others who believed in me and helped me see the value I had in myself. And that's a great opportunity that CIS has also created for me as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brooke LaFleur, and I am the Vice President of People for PSEO. Post-secondary enrollment and dual credit options help students prepare and get a head start on college, and also reduce the cost of post-secondary education to students and families. In my senior year at St. Paul Johnson High School, I participated in CIS, College in the Schools, through the University of Minnesota. Upon graduating high school in 2011, I attended Macalester College here in St. Paul. Although Macalester unfortunately did not accept my CIS courses from the U of M, I felt substantially more prepared to take on the rigorous college courses offered at Macalester. I will reference my CIS freshman writing course as an example. That class alone prepared me mentally for the expectations of the college workload. In one semester, I wrote more papers than I had during any other previous school year. I was constantly writing, editing, revising, rewording, and checking myself before someone else got the opportunity to. This process is vital to college survival, to be able to work independently, to be responsible to your work, to do the work, and then do it again, but better, to manage your time and to believe in yourself. These are important skills that helped me do exceptionally well during my first year at college and carried me through my master's degree. I believe that the early exposure to college-level work not only challenged me as a student, but also provided a firsthand experience for a post-secondary educational future. Without this preparation in high school and early exposure to college-level work, I may not have been as successful in my post-secondary experiences. After spending 2 years at Macalester, I transferred to Tulane University in New Orleans to complete my Bachelor's of Science in Neuroscience and Anthropology. The following year, I completed 2 international Montessori diplomas while earning my master's in education at 24 years old. I'm very grateful that post-secondary enrollment and dual credit options existed for me, and I hope that they may continue to be vital options for students now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Sandstede, or not Sandstede, I did it again. Sandell. Mr. Erickson.
Mr. Chair, members, my name's Roger Ernst, and I'm here to testify in favor of the College in the Schools bill here. A couple things that I want to draw the committee's attention to. Obviously, you've seen the testimonials from the students. What happens with this appropriation is we get $4 million. The secondary school principals believe this is one of the strongest college credit programs that we have in Minnesota. But that $4 million gets divided up. It says we get $150 a student, but as the handout that you have that's been prepared by the staff shows you, we actually get about $50 a student because that $150 is prorated out over all of the kids that take the classes. The structure of these classes is very unique. Our high school teachers actually get approved by the college. Our teachers teach the class technically under the supervision of a college instructor. Then the college charges us per student for the class. So when you give us $50 to pay for the class, the University of Minnesota charges us $145 a class. Now that $4 million has been static in the system for quite some time in terms of relative to the $150. So what we're really looking for is to have that number catch up. This does a lot to keeping our kids in the schools. This works very well in the metropolitan programs. It works very well in the rural programs. And it allows kids to get this college credit from our teachers and have the high school experience at the same time. This is really a good program. There's been a bit of neglect in the funding of it through the years. And maybe that's our fault in part as well. But we really want you to look closely at this in the mix as you make the decisions as how you're spending things. So we thank you, Mr. Chair, and we appreciate very much that this bill is brought forward this year.
Thank you, Mr. Aronson. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify either for or against House File 1190? Seeing none, I think Representative Sandell, brief closing comments.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thanks very much for the time. I'm really pleased and proud to be with this group of people. These two terrific students, Dr. Nathan and Mr. Erickson, have described, I think, the nature of the request and the future that we're looking forward to. So, Mr. Chair, thanks very much for the opportunity to request that this be held over.
Thank you. And with that, Representative Sandell renews his motion that House File 1190 be laid over for possible inclusion in a future division report. To the youth who spoke, thank you very much. We prize hearing your voices in the education finance decisions that we make as a committee. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Representative Erickson.
Mr. Chair and members, I'd like to move 1969 for possible inclusion in a division report. And
Thank you very much.
I have the A1 amendment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Erickson moves the A1 amendment. This is an author's amendment to get the bill in the form that she prefers. Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the 1969 A1 amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Representative Erickson, to your bill is amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an oral amendment that I would like to have incorporated on line 1.19, where it says in item C, 400,000. I would like to change that amount to half. Since I have deleted the appropriation, then I don't think it's very relevant to have an amount listed there. So if that could be incorporated, I'd appreciate it.
So, Representative Erickson, to clarify, since I immediately scratched out 400,000 and put 200,000 in, you mean the word half?
Mr. Chair and members, I want the word HALF, half.
All right.
We'll accept.
So, Representative Erickson moves her oral amendment. Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. To your bill as amended and amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm not going to say very much because I think the testifiers are going to prove to you that Science for Scientists is a great program for our low-income and rural schools where we can bring in our local scientists, and we have a lot of them, into the classroom to show our students in STEM programs what an exciting area this is for learning. And this program will assist our teachers in training, but most of all, the students will have this real access to scientists. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to my testifiers.
Thank you, Representative Erickson. Ms. French, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. My name is Carlene French. I am a geologist and Director of Development for the Minnesota Office of Science from Scientists. And I want to thank you very much for considering our organization for grant funding in House File 1969. Science from Scientists is a nonprofit organization that specializes in during school STEM enrichment for 3rd through 8th grade students. We were founded in Boston in 2002, and we've since expanded to San Mateo, California, and Bloomington, Minnesota. We've demonstrated program scalability and have a record of measurably improving student aptitudes and attitudes in STEM. Our goals are to work with and within the existing education system to close STEM achievement gaps and substantially increase the number of students pursuing STEM careers and trades. And what do I mean by STEM achievement gaps in Minnesota? Well, according to 2017 ACT data, only 24% of Minnesota students taking the exam met the ACT benchmark for college readiness in STEM. Racial and ethnic minority groups were 3 to 15 times less likely to meet the benchmark than white students, and rural students were 2 times less likely to meet the benchmark than suburban students. Our During School program can be used as a platform for communities across Minnesota to create their own community-based STEM education and workforce solutions. In this program, as Representative Erickson stated, we hire real, personable STEM professionals from local businesses and universities, and yes, I do mean personable STEM professionals, and we assign them to partner schools for the entire year. 2 instructors visit a school 18 times per year, that's every other week, to guide each class of students of 1 to 2 grade levels through hands-on STEM lessons that are aligned with the academic standards, and we provide all of the materials. We have over 90 lessons in our library in all domains of STEM, and teachers choose the lessons that best complement their own curricula. We're STEM professionals, and we're not teachers. I need to emphasize that. So classroom teachers are with us in the classroom, and their collaboration is vital to the program's success. We measure the success of the program by tracking student scores on state standardized assessments in science, by administering pre- and post-lesson quizzes, and by conducting teacher and student surveys. Our During School program also can be combined with teacher professional development, such that the teachers replace scientists in the classroom over time. We're currently serving 1,441 students in 16 elementary and middle schools. Most schools are located in the metro area. One is located in Ogama on the White Earth Reservation. We have over 20 schools on our waiting list. Program metrics for the 2017-18 academic year indicated a 16% improvement from pre to post lesson quizzes. That's almost a 2 grade level improvement. 6% improvement on 5th grade MCA scores in science, and 89% of teachers reporting increased student aptitude and attitude in STEM and related careers. Most of our funding comes from corporate grants and is geographically restricted to nearby neighborhoods. So legislative funding would be less restrictive than corporate and foundation funding and would allow us to provide more equitable access to quality STEM education to students of color and students in rural areas or Native communities. Half the funds would be used to support the program in the metro area, and half the funding would support program expansion into rural areas. And grant funds potentially could help us reach dozens of schools and thousands of students over the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. French. Principal Anderson. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Craig Anderson. I'm the proud principal of Battle Creek Elementary School on the east side of St. Paul, in our backyard. Currently, we have 538 students at Battle Creek. 92% of those students are students of color, and the racial breakdown is very diverse. We have about 44% Asian students, 11% Hispanic students, 33% Black students, and that's half African American students and half African immigrant students. We have 9% white students and 2% Native students. As you can hear, it's a very diverse place, and Science from Scientists has come to help us work with our mission and our vision, which is learning powered by STEAM. And STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. It's what kids get excited about and why they're excited to come to Battle Creek. And the Science from Scientists program has helped us immeasurably in many ways, but I'll tell you 3 or 4. One way is the super exciting hands-on science activities that they bring to us every other week. They go to the computer lab, which is decked out with everything from dry ice and all kinds of interesting materials to using real science tools to measure effects of experiments that they're doing with the scientists. So the super cool, exciting learning is probably the number one benefit. Number 2, they get to meet a scientist. A lot of our students are limited by their experience. If you don't know what an engineer is or does, you are not going to be thinking, boy, I really want to be an engineer, or a chemist, or a geologist, or a biologist. And they get to meet all of these scientists over the course of 2 years, because they do this in their 4th and 5th grade. The last thing is it brings them to college level thinking. If you go to our website at Battle Creek Elementary School, there's a little video on there, and a girl named Lillian says, she has big eyes, and she's looking out, and she says with full authority, when you drop the dry ice into the warm water, it desublimates and forms a cloud. And she's like, I'm like, what is desublimates? And I'm sure people in this room were thinking the same thing, and a 5th grader is using vocabulary with such authority. The final benefit is our teachers learn all of the lessons along with the students, and they're able to replicate those. And so we can, in the future, trade out the modules, and the teachers can now teach the modules that they've learned in conjunction with teaching them with the scientists. So it's teacher professional development, it's scientist exposure, and it's just great, fantastic learning for kids. So
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Ms. Huggenberger, if I got that right.
You did.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Susanna Huggenberger, and I'm a doctoral candidate in biochemistry and biophysics at the University of Minnesota, and I'm one of the scientist instructors for Science from Scientists. So I wanted to share with you what it's like in the classrooms by telling you a little bit about the 2 placements, the 2 schools I'm in this year. One is an alternative middle school and high school in St. Paul, which you can imagine is a fairly difficult school to teach at. And one is a STEAM school in Bloomington, which is a very different placement. So when I first arrived at the alternative school in St. Paul, the students made it very clear they did not want us there. The science program was not that developed. The teacher was a first-year teacher, and it was very hard initially. But things have really changed since we've been there for almost 6 months. Now when I go in with my eyeballs for an eyeball dissection lesson, the security guard who lets me in knows we've got the eyeballs, and everyone's really excited. And to go from students not even removing their earbuds for us to teach, to go from them asking for more eyeballs to dissect was a really big deal at such a difficult school. At my other placement, the STEAM school in Bloomington, were perhaps too effective. When I was there for our first lesson this year, one of the 4th graders told me he'd already done this experiment. And I thought that was really interesting because we have original lessons. These are not lessons other teachers are teaching. And he told me that his brother had had Science from Scientists last year and brought the experiment home and did it with his family. So this is telling me that we are teaching the next generation of scientists, and they're actually teaching the next generation. So that tells me that we're doing what we're setting out to do.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Pardon me. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify either for or against House File 1969?
Good year.
Seeing none, questions from members? It's a quiet bunch today. Representative Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I ask you for support. I know the money's going to be tight, which is why I removed the appropriations and changed the word in line 1.19. But I think you can see what this does for our students, and we should really be focused on our learners and on our students. And what a great opportunity as we are transitioning from our science standards now into our kind of next generation standards, although they won't be purely next generation. But this provides that option for students to have these opportunities for hands-on and to learn under experts. So I hope we consider that as we think about the future of our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Erickson. And with that, Representative Erickson renews her motion that House File 1969, as amended, be laid over for possible inclusion in a division report. Representative Lien. Representative Hewitt, would you like to move House File 2110 be before the committee for possible inclusion in a future division report?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Thank you, Representative Hewitt. Representative Lien, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Appreciate you hearing this bill today, House File 2110. And the need for this bill was brought to my attention by Superintendent Brandon Lunak, who you all are already familiar with today, from the Moorhead Public School District, after the district held a successful bond vote in 2015 to add on to the middle school in Moorhead, which was first constructed in 2004. The new square footage has the effect of lowering the average building age in the Moorhead School District, which would reduce the amount of long-term facilities maintenance revenue the district would receive from the state. However, the district is not reducing any existing square footage used for educational purposes. The net result is that the district would have to maintain more square footage with less revenue from the state. I understand other districts around the state are facing a similar situation, and this change in law would be a one-time statewide correction rather than having to address this issue for individual districts one at a time. Mr. Chair, committee members, I do have a technical author's amendment that I'd like to take up at this time.
Yes, the chair will move the H2110A1 amendment to be before the committee. Representative Lien, anything to say about the amendment?
The amendment was caught by nonpartisan staff and I as we were walking through the bill a couple days ago and just clarifying language.
All right. Thank you very much. Any discussion to the amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor of the A1 amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion opposed? Motion prevails.
All right. Thank you,
Representative
Mr.
Lien.
Chair. Committee members, I will now walk through the bill. Section 1 eliminates old language in subdivision 1, paragraphs A and B that was in state law for fiscal years 2017 and 2018. Changes to the newly proposed paragraph A remove the existing definition for district's average building age to 35 years and inserts new language for district's building age index. The newly proposed paragraph B defines the new district's building age index as the greater of 1, the lesser of 1, or the ratio of the district's average building age for the most recent year for which data is available to 35 years, or 2, the district's building age index for the previous year. The newly proposed paragraph C puts certain conditions in place that a district has to meet for the new building age index or the building age index for the fiscal year immediately prior to the addition of district square footage to be used for calculating long-term facilities maintenance revenue, whichever would be greater. And the results of this change in law would hold districts harmless in the amount of long-term facilities maintenance revenue they receive in the event square footage is added onto district buildings without a reduction in overall square footage used for educational purposes. Section 2 of the bill provides a cleanup of obsolete language that was in law for fiscal years 2017 and 2018. And Mr. Chair, committee members, I can now stand for questions or allow Superintendent Lunak to make some comments.
Superintendent, welcome apparently back to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. I'm Brandon Lunick, Superintendent of Moorhead Schools, and I'd like to thank you for listening to me once again. In 2015, we did have a successful bond. We did add, like Mr. Lien said, an addition to the middle school at our Horizon Middle School site, but we also built a new elementary school that year as well. So we officially added almost 300,000 square feet to our footprint. And just to give you an idea of where we're at, in pay, from pay 16 to pay 19, the Moorhead area public schools, because of the formula and the current language that it's set up in, stands to lose just north of $1.4 million in deferred maintenance to maintain our facilities. And we're maintaining more square footage with less revenue. So I appreciate you allowing me this time to explain where we're at in terms of Moorhead. And I truly agree with Mr. Lien that this is a fix for all districts moving forward, not just Moorhead today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify regarding House File 2110? Member questions? Again, it's a quiet, Representative Marquardt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this forward, Representative Lien. And so, I mean, the bottom line is that that long-term facility maintenance program is great. Schools, when we started this, it was super, but it penalizes school districts that are adding on for whatever reason they need to do so. And so they actually have way more square footage, but now they're actually going to lose money to maintain those facilities. So it just needs a fix here. And I don't know I missed the beginning, so I don't know what the total cost, but maybe there's even a phase-in or something that could be worked out ultimately to this. But it is something that if you have facilities, you have to maintain them, and the formula now is going to penalize you if you need to grow. So I'm hoping we can do something with this, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Lien, any closing comments?
Mr. Chair, committee members, I appreciate your time and attention on this bill today, and I'd ask for your consideration of support. Thank you.
With that, Representative Hewitt renews his motion that House File 2110, as amended, be laid over for possible inclusion in a future division report. Thank you, Representative Lien. Thank you, Superintendent.
What district number is Moorhead, you know?
150, 15.
Very good. Representative Lee? Very good. Representative Pryor, would you like to move House File 2325 to be before the committee for possible inclusion in division report?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Representative Lee, no amendment, am I correct? Oh,
Mr. Chair, I do have the A1 amendment.
my apologies. Right there in our packets. Representative Pryor, would you please move the A1 amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the A1 amendment.
Thank you very much. This is an author's amendment to get the bill in the form you prefer.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any discussion to the author's A1 amendment, 2325A1? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Representative Lee, to your bill as amended, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to present House File 2325. Excuse me. The bill provides an increase to the adult basic education funding, and the amendment that was put on changes the calculation of growth and contact hours from a 10-year rolling average to the prior year's contact hours. And the bill creates a process to allow adult basic education funding to grow when the K-12 formula aids grow, or when the ABE contact hour grows, but never by more than 3%. And the effect on this on the ABE system will be to provide some compensation for cost increases due to inflation. And members, ABE services are cost effective because improving literacy and educational skills helps families in poverty increase their earnings and achieve economic self-sufficiencies. Moreover, parents and especially mothers who gain literacy skills are more likely to have a positive influence on their children's academic achievement, helping to break the cycle of poverty. And As you will hear from a testifier, I just want to say that this is really important for a lot of our families in the state of Minnesota. And I still remember a conversation that I had with a Minneapolis family of a Somali community member talking about how excited she was to be able to take some of these courses over at the Minneapolis Public School building, and after that going back to her workplace over at the airport, and how the courses does help her in her interaction with her employer and her colleagues at the airport. And so I just feel like this is really important, and I wanted to turn it over to my testifier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you Ms. Walters?
Yes.
Excellent. Would you please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony?
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Karen Walters. I serve as Legislative Chair for Literacy Action Network, which is the statewide professional advocacy association for adult basic education in Minnesota. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of HF 2325, which would tie our annual ABE funding increases to K-12 funding increases. So Minnesota ABE provides adults with educational opportunities to acquire and improve their literacy skills necessary to become self-sufficient and participate effectively as productive workers, family members, and citizens. We offer services for low-skilled adults, including GED, state competency-based high school diploma, and English language learning, among other services. A major theme of all ABE programming is the development and integration of career pathway programming, which is designed to help adults prepare for employment and/or participate in higher education. ABE is funded primarily through state funding. This funding is administered via a formula that's developed with statewide input, which attempts to provide fair and equitable access to ABE in greater Minnesota and in the metro area. The formula is actively supported by the vast majority of ABE providers throughout Minnesota. Since the formula was developed, the cumulative inflation rate has been just under 40%. There has been no inflationary adjustment for ABE during this time. This lack of funding has increasingly affected the provisions of ABE services. For example, 3/4 of all ABE teachers are part-time. School districts and nonprofit programs struggle to provide crucial services in a high-quality manner with ever-increasing expenses and stagnant funding. Over time, the ability of ABE to meet the educational needs of low-skilled adults in Minnesota has eroded due to decreased funding. The services we are being asked to provide are increasing in cost and complexity. Due to the low unemployment rate, the basic skills students we are seeing often deal with multiple barriers that require more intensive services. And career pathway education requires sophisticated skill training, generally in partnership with the state college system and workforce programs. A significant amount of collaboration and coordination is required, and teachers with specialized knowledge must be hired. The cost of this bill is quite minimal in the context of overall education funding. However, the funding requested is crucial in providing ABE services in a high-quality, effective manner to Minnesotans who are trying to improve their skills to become employed in a rapidly changing economy. Thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walters. Ms. Rudmanis? Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Renata Ritmanis, and I'm the president of Literacy Action Network and also the ABE supervisor for St. Paul Public Schools. Thank you for letting me speak today. An estimated 250,000 Minnesota residents need English as a second language services. Minnesota ABE programs have extensive experience and expertise working with immigrant populations as they arrive in Minnesota, helping them increase their English proficiency and obtain citizenship. ABE services also help new Americans obtain high school equivalency and prepare for post-secondary education and training toward higher paid, in-demand careers such as nursing and welding. ABE offers career pathways, an approach that integrates basic skills education, post-secondary training, and support services. These programs thrive on local partnerships, including ABE, colleges, workforce centers, social service providers, and employers. Together, partners design sequences of educational offerings that are manageable for working adults and lead to careers in high-demand, well-paying jobs. In this way, ABE addresses the emerging skills gap. ABE also addresses the K-12 achievement gap by lifting families out of poverty and giving parents the academic and advocacy skills they need to support their children. Adult education is no less valuable than the rest of our education programs. Not increasing funding for our state programs is leading to some programs seeking special appropriations for their districts. This does not lead to an equitable distribution of funds, as everyone has similar needs. Such targeted allocation over time threatens the viability of the ABE formula to continue to provide equitable access to ABE services in all parts of Minnesota, and I urge you to support this bill. With me today is an ABE student, Layla Ahmad, and she is going to tell you about what ABE services have meant for her and her family.
Ms. Ahmad, please come forward. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Layla Ahmed. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Ms. Ahmad, I think we need you to lean a little closer to the microphone. We want to be able to hear you well.
I'm sorry.
No, quite all right.
Thank you for letting me to be in front of you speaking today. My name is Layla Ahmed, and I come from Somalia 22 years ago with no English and a little math. I couldn't have a job because of my English. Because of my safety, I couldn't read and write. For my safety, they couldn't hire me because of a lot of machines assemblies. ABE program had helped me to have a better job. I am a BCA right now. I can have the job I wanted. I can easily do my application, and I have a better job right now. And I am able to help my children homework. I have my firstborn child is dental hygiene, and I have a high school child who want to be engineering, and I'm able to help his homework because of ABE program, because of Hub Center existence. My child will not have a frustration to have hard time with his homework. And when I was I'm still Hub Center student. I had a child who go to child care, and I could have easily access my child and see my children. I was breastfeeding at the time. Right now, I want to continue in my education and contribute to this society. I want to be a social worker and continue my education. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your coming before the committee today. Tamara Sieve? I'm doing it again. My apologies.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Tamara Sieve.
Thank you.
That's very good. At least you didn't say Steve. That happens quite a bit. We were really close.
Thank you for your generosity. Please proceed with your testimony.
I am the Director of Community Education for Bloomington Public Schools, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Minnesota Community Education Association. So thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of HF 2325. Adult Basic Education is a key program that community education supports and values. ABE provides an education for adult learners in employment skills and provides a starting point for initial entrance into the workforce, promotion in their current employment, and reentry into the workforce. ABE provides second chances to our adult learners and supports the economic development in Minnesota. Adult learners are able to get the tools that they need to move forward in their life to be self-sufficient and participate effectively as productive workers, family members, and citizens. In recent years, career pathways for education and for adult learners who lack basic skills to gain living and wages and employment has been a central focus for adult basic education. People before me have testified on some of those pathways. Adult basic education partners with DEED, career force centers, local college, counties, and businesses to build pathways to jobs that are in high demand. A big part of the job gap in our economy is at the lowest end of the spectrum. So we're preparing many of our learners to enter jobs that are currently going unfilled. Local businesses are clearly asking for more workers, and we have a pipeline ready to go. We just need more resources to make it happen. Examples of career pathways across the state are Child Development Associate, healthcare pathways, including nursing assistant, medical terminology, phlebotomy, transportation, focusing on CDL prep for the shortage in bus drivers, paraprofessionals, IT careers, food service,
green construction, manufacturing. These are just a few examples. With increased funding, Adult Basic Ed will be able to expand the innovative programming and develop career pathways with multiple partners. ABE is also essential in serving low-income and immigrant communities. Through ABE, they have the opportunity to improve their literacy and employment skills so they can truly participate in their children's lives, the workforce, and our community. They can be our most vulnerable adults and can get lost in our systems. ABE provides opportunity and connectedness, which impacts the lives of our adult learners and our community. We can sometimes be their only lifeline and support. As a former ABE director, have so many stories and faces that how ABE has touched their lives, changed their lives, and changed the direct trajectory of their future opportunities. ABE is an integral partner and necessary partner in the future of Minnesota. As an aside here, I will say, my son is coming back from the military and is benefiting after 5 years being deployed, coming back and being able to utilize a partnership with the ABE and a local community college to prepare for reentry. It's amazing. So, adult-based education is vital to Minnesota's future. ABE supports adult learners and the future needs of the Minnesota workforce. Resources are needed. An increase of funding would allow ABE to not only sustain the current foundation of programming for our adult learners, but expand to meet the ever-changing landscape of Minnesota's economy. Every dollar provided to ABE is an investment in the future of Minnesota. Thank you again for providing me the opportunity to share with you how we value adult basic education and why we support the increase in funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stephen, and good luck to your son on his return to civilian life. Heather Turngren, excuse me. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Heather Turngren. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Heather Turngren, as I've stated, and I live and work in Minneapolis. I am a fully licensed adult basic education teacher, and as other ABE teachers, we follow the same licensing requirements as our K-12 teachers do, as well as the same relicensing requirements. I have been an ABE teacher with Minneapolis Adult Education in Minneapolis Public Schools for 19 years. I'm a proud ABE teacher. In Minneapolis Adult Education, which is similar to many other ABE programs across the state of Minnesota, we serve adult students. We serve English language learners, similar to Layla, with ESL classes, and we also serve native English students, native English speaking students, looking for basic skills, GED classes, college preparation classes. As you may already know, many of the students you find in ABE classrooms across the state of Minnesota represent Minnesota's communities of color. ABE is a great way to help Minnesota close the achievement gap within our education system. It also allows students of all ages to achieve the education opportunities they may not have been able to obtain earlier. ABE is also a perfect partner with K-12 education as we help serve the parents of Minnesota's children. I feel lucky to have been able to teach classes at almost every level of ABE programming in my 19 years as an ABE teacher. Ranging from pre-literacy to college prep, I've taught classes in science, social studies, math, reading, writing, and many career pathway programming classes. We also have classes in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, even on Saturdays. We offer ABE classes when students are able to attend. My focus as an ABE teacher has always been on students and being a flexible provider for the learning of our students. This bill before you will help provide the necessary funding for ABE programs across Minnesota to continue to do the great work that the others before me have mentioned. If I had more time, I would share with you the many stories about my students and how ABE has helped them achieve their goals. But in the essence of time, I will just say this, that additional funding for ABE will help us to continue to serve adults who attend classes, and they then in turn can help with their children's education. We also will help adults achieve their employment goals and looking for more and better employment opportunities. So I'm asking all of you, please give full support of this bill. And thank you, Representative Lee, for all your support for ABE and for bringing this bill forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Turngren. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify either for or against House File 2325? Seeing none, member questions. Representative Detmer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a question. This is an important adult basic education. I know in my area is important. I'm looking at lines 1.2, 1.12, and 1.13. We can have carryover money from one year to the next. And how much money is in there right now?
I'm going to throw that to Mr. Strom, if you can help us with that, or Ms. Adrians.
Mr. Chair, members, with the ABE program, there are two parts to the program. There's the regular funding that goes out to the districts, and then there's this amount that's calculated as the adjustment each year that's paid out on a different level. And so it's not so much carry forward as it is that amount is used to determine the second portion of the formula that's paid out. But it's not as if it goes into reserve that builds up each year. It's part of that actual calculation. And what it's looking at there is the amount of aid in that preceding year to determine the amount that goes into that other calculation.
Representative Detmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Lee, for bringing this bill. It's so important. I think everybody has value and can contribute. I do have some questions with regards to the ABE program. How many sites are there throughout the state of Minnesota? And within those sites, are there differing specialties in terms of workforce training?
You can phone a friend, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a staff member from the Department of Education.
Very good. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Hello, my name is Brad Haskamp. Thank you for an excellent question. Around the state of Minnesota, currently we have about 330 sites for adult basic education that are serving in a variety of school district sites, community-based organizations or nonprofits, libraries, and other locations. There's a wide variety of locations across the state. Some of them are very small sites, such as our maybe workplace sites, workplace literacy sites. Others are very large, like the Hub Center in St. Paul, that is a specially designed adult school. I have to apologize, I did not hear the second part of that question.
Representative Edelson.
I think that you actually, thank you, Chair. I think you answered it quite well. The other question I have is going to the age groups. So say, for instance, there's somebody that comes in and that wants to do an ABE course, and they're 19 years old or 20. I mean, is it free for them? I guess I'm just curious what it looks like for that process.
So, excellent question. A person is technically eligible for adult basic education as long as they are no longer enrolled in K-12 or no longer required to be enrolled in K-12. And so someone between the ages of 17 through 21 is often given that choice of whether they are able to or would prefer to enroll in K-12 in lieu of adult basic education. K-12 obviously offers more comprehensive services and a lot more, such as transportation, free reduced lunch, items like that. Adult basic education typically does not have any of those additional services. So within adult basic education, most programs do not charge a fee. It is free for those individuals as long as they're eligible. However, some of them do have materials fees or test fees. For example, if you want to test for the GED test, you would have to pay that testing fee. And that is currently, typically the sticker price for that is $120 for the full battery, but because of the ongoing subsidy through the state legislature, that goes down to about $80 per individual.
Last question, Representative Edelson.
Thank you so much. And just in terms of the workforce training piece of it, each site, does it specialize in a specific workforce area? Or I'm just in terms of wondering geographically what people have access to.
Mr. Haskamp.
Yeah, excellent question. Each adult basic education consortium or grantee is required to kind of is asked to target their workforce development services based on the industries that are in demand for that area. So in many areas though across the state, we see healthcare as a major need. So we see a lot of certified nursing assistant programs and things like that across the state. But in greater Minnesota, for example, Southwest Minnesota, green construction was a much larger industry in demand. So there was additional programs towards that area. So they they really are tailored to, one, the industries that are in demand, and two, the partners that they have in those areas.
Representative Sandell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a big fan of ABE, and Representative Lee, thank you very much for bringing this bill up. I am interested in the work that you're doing with the Department of Corrections. I see that the hours of, or the contract hours are highest for that department, but there seems to be only one site. Is that the case, and what is your experience and hopefully great success with the Department of Corrections?
Excellent
Mr.
question.
Haskamp.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Actually, the Department of Corrections, you'll see in that the second column for this spreadsheet, it does say one consortium member. However, that doesn't mean the number of sites. That's not equal to the number of sites. Actually, there are 9 Department of Corrections facilities that do offer adult basic education. Every Department of Corrections facility, every prison, with the exception of Red Wing, offers adult basic education services. And so those are well attended, and we have a very solid partnership with that agency.
Last question, Representative Sandell.
Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lee, any closing comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to present this bill. And I just want to say thank you to the bipartisan author, the chair, and Representative Creashaw for signing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lee. Sorry about that. With that, Representative Pryor renews her motion that House File 2325, yes, be laid over for possible inclusion in a future division report. Members, a reminder, we reconvene, call of the chair, tentatively 5:30 this evening in the basement hearing room. Cozy, quiet. With that, we are in recess. Thank you very much.